Welcome, everyone. This is Benny Gold, back for Lawyer Stories, the podcast, episode 5. Today, we have with us Gordi Mikalacki. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
That is correct. Mikalacki, correct
Mikalacki.
pronunciation.
Welcome to the show out of
Thank
Phoenix,
you.
Arizona. Attorney.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on Lawyer Stories podcast, episode 5.
Yeah, it's great to have you. We really enjoyed featuring you in, I think it was mid-December 2000. What year are we in? I think it was 2019,
19.
right? Okay, thank you. Before we get into your story, I just want to speak for a moment and send my best to everybody out there dealing with this worldwide pandemic, and make sure that everybody's doing what their state and local government and the federal government is telling us to do. If it's social distancing, please do that. If you're required to stay home from work, please do that. We don't want to infect the elderly, even though we might not be the most at-risk population. So I just hope everybody out there is staying healthy and doing what they should be doing. And this is a terrible thing that we have to go through. And with that said, hopefully a podcast like this, or scrolling through the Lawyer Stories feed, that's at lawyer_story on stories on Instagram, takes your mind off of the news for a little while. I'm always happy when I'm able to divert attention from a very serious crisis, although we should definitely be paying attention to it. So with that said, I will welcome you again, Gordi. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. I'm really excited for episode 5 of the Lawyer Stories podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Good. Thank you very much.
Good. So tell me, I know, we featured you back in December, and your lawyer story was great. So you're in Arizona, and you went to Arizona State. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm an Arizona native, so nowadays it's really hard to find an Arizona native. We have a lot of people from the Midwest and all the cold areas of the country, but I am one of the few, and I went to Arizona State University, Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law.
That's great. I actually had to look it up because I'm a big Patriots fan. I know we just lost Tom Brady, but that's okay.
I know.
I love Tom Brady. I'll probably root for the Bucks unless they're playing the Patriots. But I had our boy Rob Gronkowski was out in Arizona for college, so I actually, I Googled it. I wasn't sure if it was University of Arizona or Arizona State, but I think it was University of Arizona. So I don't think you guys crossed paths at any parties or anything like that.
Probably not. I think I would have remembered Gronkowski if I crossed paths with him years ago.
So moving on. So one question I like to ask people that I have on the show is, like, did you have a certain time in your life, like an epiphany or like a moment where you said, man, I really want to be a lawyer? And I went back and did read your lawyer story, and I think you did have that moment actually when you were younger. Is that correct? Where you said, I want to be a lawyer?
Yeah, that is true. I always, as far as I can remember, I always wanted to be a lawyer. And as cheesy as it might be, I think like one of the first reasons why I wanted to be one was we would drive to church and we would go past this Gamage Auditorium, which is Arizona State University's auditorium. And I remember my parents saying, if you ever become a lawyer, you get to graduate from that. You get to have your commencement ceremonies in that auditorium, and all the attorneys, they line up there, and it's a beautiful auditorium. If you know anything about Frank Lloyd Wright, he's just amazing when it comes to architecture. He has like these arches, and so you can like walk up these arches, and they said, this is, how you can be an attorney. You get to graduate from there. And I just remember thereafter, shortly, we were doing like a project, and I think it might have been first grade, and the teacher had asked, what do we want to be?
Right.
And I said, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be an attorney. And she thought that was kind of funny because we had like firefighter, policeman, teacher, that kind of thing. And I remember her asking me, why do you want to do that? And I said, well, because lawyers help people. Lawyers have power. They can help people with their power. So to me, I always thought lawyers were pretty cool people, and I wanted to become one. So
great. And that was after you drove by the big auditorium. So that's great. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, and then you just kept on the path. Like it was actually a legit thing. It wasn't like, it wasn't really something that Yeah, that's great.
It was always in the back of my mind. It was always something that I had just made my mind up as young as I was. I mean, being a first grader, that I knew I was going to do this, that I was doing everything for that end goal, whether it was, taking certain classes in
Yep.
school or in college. And that was it for me.
Right. So even in high school, you were like, man, I really want to be a lawyer. Like, I'm going to see what I can do, what I can study to get on that path.
That's right. That's
So,
exactly.
so like one thing I noticed, and before we get into like what you're doing today, um, you did have you work for Child and Family Protection Division. I'm just
That's
curious like,
correct.
what that experience was like. I mean, you're probably working with people, very vulnerable people at a difficult time in their life.
It was shortly after the economic crisis. So, I mean, even people who had money all of a sudden didn't have money. And I was in charge of the accountability and enforcement court sections, or courts rather. And so we were just enforcing child support orders and making sure people were standing in accordance with their obligation, following the court's orders. And you just meet so many different families that are in need of regular child support. Oftentimes they're welfare recipients, but on the other side, you have payers who were trying to meet their obligations, and maybe they were in the housing field and all of a sudden the economy tanked and then they couldn't pay the orders. So it was
Right.
really interesting to hear both sides, if you will, of the story, and try to still do our job as attorney generals. So
Right. No, that's definitely interesting. And like another thing that I read and like we've discussed is that your family was in the hotel business. Did you ever want to
yeah.
stay in the hotel business? I actually, like, a little personal tidbit from me is I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the Sioux Chalet, but I worked there back in the
Oh,
day, like between, I think it might have been college, a couple summers, and then I worked at the Fairfield Inn by Marriott at the front desk. So a hotel,
that's pretty cool.
yeah, hotel hospitality was kind of cool. So I'm just curious. You said your family was in the hotel business, but you were kind of taking a different path to go to law school.
Right. I mean, as different as law, nobody from my family, has a background in law or were attorneys. They were all entrepreneurs. So interestingly enough, even though they're two entirely different fields, working with my family at such a young age really did teach me certain values and principles about work ethic and making sure you fulfill your responsibilities. If you commit to something, you just have to go full force with it. And I use those traits, those learning experiences, and applied them to becoming an attorney. So even though it was two different fields, not related at all one to another, still things that I learned in working with my family really, I feel like, molded me for that journey of becoming an attorney, which I'm so grateful for. So it was a
Yeah,
cool experience.
that's awesome. So were they excited when you said, "Hey, I want to go to law school, but I'm going to stay in state and do it," and this is the path
Yeah.
I'm taking? Yeah.
I think they were really grateful. I think they were happy. I don't know if they had that as their plan all along, like telling me about, hey, that's where the attorneys graduate from the Gamage
Right.
Auditorium. I don't know, but they were really happy that I would be pursuing a professional degree and be the first in my family to do that.
So did you go right from undergrad to law school?
No, I did a year in between. I worked for the Arizona governor. At the time, her name was
Okay.
Janet Napolitano. So
Cool.
there I was working on education policies. She was really big on full day kindergarten at the time and trying to implement that across the state. And so I did that for a year, and it solidified even more. Even though I already knew I wanted to be an attorney, it further solidified my wanting to go to law school, because I was just surrounded by attorneys, and I kept saying, yeah, I want to think like they think. I want to learn how
Right.
they learn to think and approach problem solving issues. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was a
that's
great
great.
experience.
That's good. So when you got to law school, like was it a culture shock, like a education shock, or do you feel prepared, or like what was the biggest challenge? I know I've said this before. I think it was with I touched on it with in another podcast with my friend Massimo D'Angelo, New York attorney, real estate attorney. But my biggest thing was like the Socratic method. Like I really just did not like that. It's interesting now,
Right.
and not to laugh about it, but the days of the coronavirus, it's like some of these students are at school and that's great. You should still get your education. But like, how do you call on somebody over the computer if they're doing it virtually? Like if they're called on, do they like shut their computer screen and like, run away to the bathroom? Like, they like, I mean, I kind of, that was like my least favorite thing, like was being called on. I think I'd handle it
Right.
differently now, but because hindsight's 2020. But what about you? I mean, did you just go straight through? Was there anything that kind of made you like a little like apprehensive about being there, or any challenges that you had?
I mean, like you, I definitely did not like the Socratic method. I even remember in a contracts class, I had a professor. He was a Rhodes Scholar. He went to Oxford. I mean, he was the smartest guy you can imagine, super young. He was just a little bit older than we were, and he was teaching us contracts. He was our professor, and he would do the Socratic method, and I was in the front row, and I remember thinking and kind of like planning it. Like, if I'm typing profusely, he's not going to want to interrupt me
Right, I know.
mid-thought.
What about writing? I mean, back then I'd be writing in my notebook like furiously.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
So I would try to do stuff like that to get out of getting called on. It
Right,
worked in that class, other classes, not so much. But I mean, I really, truly thought I was ready to go for law school. I'd worked for the
right,
governor. I
right.
graduated summa cum laude from the honors college at ASU. So I thought, like, I'm decently smart. I think I can handle this. But then when I got into law school, I didn't realize that everybody's smart in law school. So
Right.
it was very humbling, and I had struggles for sure. The first year, my grades were not good. I had to figure out how to take those essay tests. It was a
Right.
different method and a different approach. And I was a poli-sci major, so the way I was used to writing was completely different than what they were expecting me to do in law school. And so basically, I got my butt kicked that first year.
Yeah, it's
And I
hard.
remember, yeah, it's really,
I
really
think they break
hard.
you down just to like bring you back up. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's right. And that's kind of what happened. I had to like
right,
figure out, I'm going to be here. They're not going to, kick me out. I'm not going to leave this place. I'm going to finish this. And so I had to figure out, how do I take these tests? There's a method to this. So
right,
I hired a tutor. I got together in study groups, and I just taught myself to think and learn a different way. And then by the end of my third year, my grades had climbed, and I was offered a clerkship at the Court of Appeals with some classmates who were the top of our class. So for
oh, that's
me, I
amazing.
felt like I really was at the bottom, and I really struggled to get myself, in a good place when I graduated. So it was a good, humbling, gritty experience that I really am appreciative of now in hindsight.
That's great. I mean, that's good. That's good info. I mean, I love talking about like the lawyer stories from like law school, and it just like brings me back. I'm glad I'm not the only one who was like furiously writing in my notebook. I think that's the equivalent of what you were doing, like typing. And oh well, even if he calls me, I could say, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I was really busy writing that note from that last thing you were just saying." Like
Right.
I
That's
get
what
it.
I did.
Right. I know. That's like the out. Right. So, all right. So moving on. You stated that you were. Tell me about the firm. So I have the firm name here. You were in. Um, is it Rubezic Law? The law
Yep,
firm.
Rubizic Law Group. That's
Okay.
right.
So tell me about that, and then tell me about your transition to. You're an entrepreneur now. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we'd all like to hear about Rubezic Law, and then your transition into the Alma Law Firm.
Thank you. Yes. So when I was a assistant attorney general, I had done, I don't know, probably thousands of hearings, working in the enforcement and accountability courts. I had really felt that I had learned all that I was going to probably learn, aside from maybe seeking some kind of a management position, like a section chief position or something like that. So for me, it was time to go. I'd worked under 3 attorneys generals at that point, which was an awesome experience, but I really wanted to get a new skill set. And so there was an opportunity for me to partner and join the Rubizic Law Group, and we specialized in personal and catastrophic injury at the time. And interestingly enough, we have a lot of people in Arizona that speak Serbo-Croatian, which
Okay.
is what I grew up speaking. And so I think that that niche market, people really wanted to have an attorney that spoke their language. They wanted to have a doctor that spoke their language. So it was really something that, was great. I was able to be in the firm, speak a language that I was taught from a very young age, and learn the ins and outs of personal and catastrophic injury. And, I worked on many, many cases. I had got countless policy limit settlements. We litigated
Wow.
several cases and just really learned, from the ground up how personal injury and catastrophic injury works. I probably did that for about 5 years, I think. And with that, the
So
personal and catastrophic,
plaintiff
go
side
ahead.
though, right? I don't mean to sound,
Yep.
okay. All
That's right. Plaintiff side. So lots of times people call us ambulance chasers, but I mean,
right.
when you have a client that gets in an accident and they have injuries and they can't work or they can't tend to their family, I feel for those people because this has happened to them. They didn't ask for this to happen to them, and now they're having to struggle and deal with sometimes life-altering injuries. So, I just really found myself having compassion towards them and just really asking how they're feeling and, what I can do to hopefully make their life a little easier. And so still, interestingly enough, personal and catastrophic injury, the field itself, at least in Arizona, but probably even in the United States, is very male dominated.
Right.
And
Right.
so, it's a man's world still. They're litigators. Usually they're not really grooming females, even in law school, to kind of take that area of
How many,
law.
so like incidentally, Gordy, like how many of those cases settled or went to trial? Like, I mean, like percentage wise, if you had a guess, like were you in trial or were
Yeah.
you settling a lot of those?
You'd be surprised. So I guess if I want to classify cases that are in litigation, I'm going to classify them as being in arbitration, anything I have to file suit on. So anything
Yep.
that's in arbitration, we're doing discovery, anything that I'm going to have a trial on. A lot of cases settle, really, truly a lot of cases settle. I would say probably it's like 80-20.
Okay.
So it just depends. It depends with the market. It depends upon the policies that every individual insurance company internally has. Like sometimes
Yep.
they decide we're going to hire an associate for $50,000 and we're just going to litigate every case. We're not going to offer, much more than what our first offer is. And we're just going to see how it goes. So you just kind of have to navigate and see what different insurance companies are doing, and sometimes you have to file lots of lawsuits against the same insurance company to kind of get their attention, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, now they know who I am and now they're going to give me some good offers. So but it's about 80-20, I would say. So a lot of cases really do settle, and I think that the law is just kind of carved out that way to give you many opportunities to try to settle before you truly have to go into arbitration or a trial.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So, how long were you at the the Rubizek firm?
Rubizek Law Group. Yeah, it was probably about 5 years, and
Okay.
so I still was like the woman behind the man. I wasn't feeling like I was getting a lot of credit for all of the hard work that I was doing. And so I thought, you know what? There's not a lot of women in this field. Maybe I can branch out on my own and open my own thing and see, where this goes. So that's where the Elm Law Group came aboard. And I named Elm after my kiddos. My daughter's name is Ava. My son's name is Luca, and my nephew's name is Maxim. And so that's where I got the firm name. And I'm one of the few female personal and catastrophic injury attorneys in Arizona. So it's kind of cool. It's like,
that's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I love my clients, and
so
we're just.
And you just launched, right? You had a grand opening? Like, I want you to be able to tell everybody about your grand opening. I'm excited for you. I think, I think it's a great thing.
Thank you so much. We did. I just launched probably, I think it was the end of August, beginning of September 2019.
Okay.
And I had a grand opening on Leap Day, February 29th, 2020.
Yep.
And, just invited former clients, people that I worked with at the Attorney General's office, at the Court of Appeals, at the Governor's office, friends, family from church, neighborhood, whatever. I mean, we just all kind of celebrated and had like a ribbon cutting ceremony and just really memorialized the opening of the firm. So it's been great and I've enjoyed it. And I love being able to, just create this new business model like I did with the Rubizik Law Group and do this with the Elm Law Group.
So between these two law firms, your personal law firm, Elm Law Group, Elm Law Firm,
Elm Law Group,
Elm Law Group, and the Rubizik Law Group, like, what is there a case that like is highlighted in your mind? Like, I'm just curious about that.
A lot of the dog bite cases really stick out in my mind
Okay.
because those are really, truly catastrophic injuries for someone. I mean, it can be to their face before, events that are monumental in someone's life, a wedding, things like that, can really mark in my mind that stick out because, it's just so tragic, some of these injuries that these people have had to endure, especially before such an important time in their life. They've reserved everything. They're about to maybe walk down the aisle. And then all of
Wow. Okay. So that was a big one. Like, you had somebody getting married and they got snipped by a dog, huh?
Very, very tragic. Yeah, that did happen. And I think that that case in particular and cases like that, those always stick out in my mind because, it's just really, your heart really goes out to these people who are enduring something like that, yet still having the stress and the anxiety that everybody has in preparing for big monumental life events like a wedding or whatever you have. So those really stick out in my mind. And I always feel for those clients because
is there a one bite law? I mean, specifically to dog laws. And I feel like I've read somewhere that like, there's like a one bite thing. Like if they bite once, it's okay. But if they bite again, they're screwed. Like, they're not, it's not okay.
Well, it's a one bite rule. So Arizona is a one bite rule state and we're a strict liability state. And,
Got it.
you gotta make sure that the dog is behaving itself and not attacking people essentially. So, yep.
Okay.
And we have a 1-year statute of limitations in Arizona too. So it's
only 1 year. Okay.
Yep.
So Gordi, like, how is business going so far? How's your firm? Do you like being an entrepreneur? Like, do you like ownership? Like,
I do.
Good.
I think that's that entrepreneurial background that I had growing up with my family. I love that I can marry the two with law. So law and entrepreneurship. I love the fact that I can, work even with other people and clients, but still have that business aspect of it. Like, how are we going to brand ourselves? How are we going to market ourselves? What kind of a service, aside from, the ins and outs of personal and catastrophic injury, what kind of a service or what kind of a feel are we going to provide to our clients when they walk through our door? How do we want them to feel about us? How do we want them to be able to feel in communicating with us and, our accessibility? So I really love that I have the opportunity to decide that and train people that are working for me on putting out that model and really getting that feel out there. So it's been really fun. I've really enjoyed it.
That's great. So we're probably going to wrap up soon. I'm really happy for you. Is there anything else you want to add about that, or about, your career, law school, or anything you want to say in the podcast or the Lawyer Stories community?
I mean, just if anyone's interested in checking us out or seeing us, I'm going to do the shameless plug.
Yeah.
You can follow us on Instagram. We're at Elm with 2 M's, ELMM Law Group, and also on Facebook, Elm Law Group. And you can check us out. We're always posting different things.
Yeah, you know funny. So I don't mean to cut you out. That was like, I was actually going to say, like, how do we contact you? But when you say we're always contacting different things, I really love those like crazy like facts thing that you post. Like, you can't be ugly in Utah. Like, it's illegal to be ugly, like walking on the street. And I'm just like, wow, like, I don't want to live in that state. You know what I mean? Like, you post those like, different funny laws. That's kind of fun.
Yeah. We call it our Moronic Monday post.
Yes.
And kind of where that came up was in working for the governor. We had I learned of a lot of dumb laws that were on the books that were super, super old, and they just remained on the books. And so I was like, why don't we do something like that? It's just kind of funny, kind of starts off Monday in a nice, kind of happy, funny way. So
love it.
I don't know. People like it.
I like it. I think it's great.
Thank you.
So just for everybody out there, like Lawyer Stories, we've been growing. We've been around for a couple years, or it's 2.5 years or so. I really have a good time building this platform. We featured over 1,000 lawyers and law students. We have a nice community on Instagram and on Facebook. We launched this podcast. This is episode 5. Thank you for listening. If you've got this far, we really appreciate it. You could also find it on Spotify. We have a website, lawyerstories.com. I hope Gordi wants to submit a blog post and we could put it up for her. That would be awesome.
All right.
If you want to do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and it could be something that's already written too. We're just trying to get the website going. I want to build a huge community. That's what I'm after. That's what I'm doing. This is a very personal sort of thing. Personal, I don't want to say thing. I don't want to minimize it with the word thing, but it's a personal venture and personal experience building lawyer stories. I'm very I'm grateful for you coming on today and sharing your story, Gordi, and telling us all about becoming an entrepreneur. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed my time speaking with you today.
Awesome. Anytime, and any way we could ever help you, please let me know. And I think that's going to wrap up. Is anything else, or is that pretty much it for today?
Stay safe. Wash your hands. Safe. Don't touch your face.
Yeah, just stay away from people, man. Go build your personal brand. Like, go hang out. Go FaceTime some people that you haven't spoken to in a while.
Right.
But other than that, wherever you are in the world today, stay safe. Keep your distance from people, but also try to enjoy yourself. Cheers.
Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.